So, are you the one who has put photosynthesis in the list of your backlogs? Or you think that this time in the NEET, photosynthesis will vanish? So, this is the right place for you. Photosynthesis as a chapter is one of the most important chapters of plant physiology as well as of class 11th. So, all my dear kids, I've already shared with you the first lecture of photosynthesis, and today I will be clearing all of your doubts related to whether it is C2 cycle, C3 cycle, C4 cycle, or CAM pathway, all in just one class. Because when we read all the concepts separately, it might come as confusing. But in this specific class, I'm going to grab you those 4 questions of the NEET exam, and don't miss out the last, because I will be sharing with you, because we will here in the class be discussing the 3 questions which appeared in NEET 2025 from this chapter. So this is your short chance of at least 3 questions in this NEET exam, or if not 3, definitely 4 this time, because very important, very important. So let us move along and start off the second session. So everyone, we're going to start off with photosynthesis in higher plants, part 2 of the lecture. In this session, we're taking up the second session, the second part, the later half of the chapter, and what are the contents that we're going to discuss through. First of all, we've already done chemiosmotic hypothesis. So we'll be starting off with C3 cycle, moving to C4 cycle, photorespiration, CAM pathway, and factors affecting photosynthesis. While covering these topics, we'll finish off the chapter, after which, yes, we're going to see the previous year questions also. So the first topic here is Calvin cycle. It was given by a scientist whose name is Melvin Kelvin. Hence, the name of the cycle is Calvin cycle. It's also very famously known as C3 cycle. Why? Because the first stable product which is formed in the cycle has got 3 carbons. Why? Because the first stable product which is formed here, it has got 3 carbons in it. So let's start off with Calvin cycle. This is basically the biosynthetic pathway, or what we call as dark reaction. So adding different names to it. If we call it as that we have started off with the biosynthetic pathway. We've started off with the biosynthetic pathway, or it's a part of the dark reaction, all of you. I call it as dark reaction. I call it as C3 cycle. They are a lot enzyme controlled. Light reactions, with comparison to light reactions, these dark reactions are more temperature related. There are a lot of enzymes involved in it. It was given by Melvin Kelvin. It was given by whom? Melvin Kelvin, all of you. Carbon 14 radioactive carbon was used to devise this. The first stable product has 3 carbons, so C3 cycle. If I talk about the steps, of the Calvin cycle, there are 3 steps to it. Number 1, here we have to do what? We have to fix the carbon dioxide, which is known as carboxylation. Which is known as what? Carboxylation. Second step is reduction. What is the second step? It is reduction. The third step is regeneration. Before I start it off, you should understand one thing, that we're going to put these 3 steps in picture, definitely yes, but in the light reaction, we have made superpowers like ATP and NADPH. We've made superpowers like ATP and NADPH, and those ATP and NADPH are used here. They're going to be used here to make the sugar or glucose, sucrose, whatever types of sugar we want to make. So dark reaction, in light, we've already synthesized these 2. Now we're going to use this to make glucose by fixing the carbon dioxide and going through these 3 steps and going to going through these three steps. Now, what is this? I am saying that in the Calvin cycle, the first step is fixation of carbon dioxide. Fixation of carbon dioxide occurs with the help of an enzyme which is known as Rubisco. The name of the enzyme is what? Rubisco. If I say what is the name of my enzyme? The name of my enzyme, all of you, is Rubisco. What is the full form of this enzyme? What does it stand for? Rubisco stands for ribulose 1,5 bisphosphate carboxylase oxygenase. Carboxylase oxygenase. Rubisco ribulose 1,5 bisphosphate carboxylase oxygenase. Okay, everyone. So it means that this enzyme can show carboxylation also. This enzyme can show oxygenation also. It has a binding site. To that binding site, CO2 can also join or oxygen can also join. Now, who will decide? There is basically a competition between carbon dioxide and oxygen for binding to Rubisco. Now, who is going to win it? The one which is present in a higher concentration. If carbon dioxide is present in more concentration, it would bind. If oxygen is present in more concentration, it would bind. But now you'd say, ma'am, if both of them are present in the same concentration, then it is a little partial towards carbon dioxide. If both of them are present in equal proportion, then carbon dioxide is going to bind to it. But otherwise, the one which is more in concentration is going to bind to Rubisco. It can show carboxylation and oxygenation. But when I'm talking about Calvin cycle, Rubisco is showing what? Rubisco is showing the carboxylase activity. It is a favorable activity. Once we'll move to the topic of photorespiration, we'll see the oxygenation activity. I'm giving you a heads up. So, Rubisco enzyme is used in the very first step of the Calvin cycle. It's used where, everyone? It is used in the very first step of Calvin cycle. I hope you understood its name. I hope you understood its name. Give me just a moment, all of you. I actually want to duplicate this slide. Okay, they've added a plain slide. No, I don't want a plain slide. I want... no. I'm talking about this slide. I want to delete this one. Yes. Talking about this, I want to duplicate this one. Why? Because I can clean it off and I can make the whole cycle for you here. Because I want to just make the whole cycle for you here. Rest all cycles, yes, we've made them a little bit. But this is a very simple and easy one. So let's make it by our own. But so now I'm talking about how the Calvin cycle starts off with. There is a compound with the name RUBP, ribulose 1,5 bisphosphate. RUBP is a 5-carbon compound. This 5-carbon compound takes in carbon dioxide, so it is carboxylation step, and I get a compound in the name of 3-PGA. I'll write the full forms. PGA as 3 carbons in it. That's why we call this cycle as C3 cycle, because this is the first stable compound. But your 5-carbon compound plus CO2, total of 6 carbons are here. PGA has 3 carbons. Here we have 6 carbons. This has 3 carbons. It directly means that 2 molecules of 3-PGA will be formed. It tells me that 2 molecules of 3-PGA will be formed. Now, what do I have to do? I have to use ATP and NADPH to form glucose. Now, moving to the next step here, I get a compound which is known as triose phosphate. I get a compound which is known as triose phosphate. During this process, I used up ATP. I used up NADPH. I used 2 ATP and 2 NADPH to give rise to 2 ADP and 2 NADP positive. So I have used up in this step 2 ATP and 2 NADPH and got a molecule of triose phosphate. Triose phosphate is very important. Why? Because it is this molecule which will help me make glucose or starch or whatever I want to make. So this stops my search for the making of glucose. Now I want the cycle to go on. Since I want the cycle to go on, I want to regenerate RUBP, because if RUBP is formed, then only the cycle will go on. So in the next step, I'm putting in energy here. I have to regenerate RUBP. To regenerate RUBP, one molecule of ATP is used. One molecule of ATP is used. If I write down that what are all these steps, the very first step that we did here, it is carboxylation. What is it? It is carboxylation. The second step that we have done here, this is nothing else but the second step, which is reduction. This is the second step, which is reduction. This third step of regeneration of RUBP, we simply call it as regeneration. We call it as regeneration. All my dear kids, this is nothing else but the C3 cycle or the Calvin cycle. It is a universal cycle happening in all the plants. And why Rubisco? Where Rubisco? Yes, at this step where carbon dioxide is getting fixed, at this step where carbon dioxide is getting fixed, we are using Rubisco here. We are using Rubisco here. Right, I'll write it again. We are using Rubisco at this step that I already told you. So this, everyone, which is in front of you is nothing else but Calvin cycle. So RUBP takes in carbon dioxide, forms 3-PGA. I still have to write down the full forms for all of you. When I say RUBP, it is a 5-carbon compound. Its full form is ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate. When I say PGA, everyone, when I say PGA, it is phosphoglycerate or phosphoglyceric acid. What is it? PGA is phosphoglycerate. The full form is what? Phosphoglycerate. So this is your C3 cycle, everyone, which is in front of you. Very, very simple. Very, very simple. Now see this equation. What are we talking about here? Everyone, in one Calvin cycle, in one C3 cycle, we're fixing how many carbon dioxide? Just one. When I talk about glucose, in glucose there are 6 carbons, C6H12O6. It means that we have to do this Calvin cycle how many times to get one glucose? We have to do it 6 times. So when I see one complete cycle, I used 3 NADPH and 2 ATP. Now I used 2 NADPH and 3 ATPs. Why? Let me show it to you again. 2 NADPH were used here and 2 ATP. The third ATP was used in regeneration. Now everyone, this is for one cycle, but when I have to do it for 6 cycles, things would be multiplied by 6. So see here very carefully that when I'm talking about 6 carbon dioxide, they've shown you 18 ATPs. Why? 6 threes are 18 ATPs. Right? Everyone, next. 6 into 2, 6 twos are 12 NADPH. We have to fix RUBP 6 times, getting 1 glucose, and this is what all we have used, so it is after using it. 6 molecules are fixed here, all of you. RUBP is regenerated, hence it is present here also and here also. But so 6 CO2 went in so that I got 1 glucose. I used 18 ATPs, coming out as 18 ADPs. I used 12 NADPH, getting 12 NADP out of it. In these 18 ATP, 12 are used in the reduction step, while 1 ATP each is used in the regeneration step. There's nothing else to Calvin cycle than this. There's nothing else to Calvin cycle than this. Along with carbon dioxide, water also gets in. RUBP, carboxylation, 3-phosphoglycerate, 2 molecules will be formed. Reduction, 2 ATP, 2 NADPH used. Triose phosphate, regeneration completed. For 1 glucose, I will be doing it 6 times. As long as you are keeping the things simple in your brain, it will remain simple and it will remain logical. Once you will try to overcomplicate it, it would become difficult. Now I am talking about C4 cycle. Now your first question to your teacher should be, ma'am, why do we need a C3 cycle? Sorry, if we already have a C3 cycle, why do you actually need a C4 cycle? Because I told that C3 is a universal cycle by which the plant is fixing glucose, making up starch, etc., etc. So why is the need of the second cycle there when there was only there was another cycle existing? So bachcho, understand this here a little bit. When from the initial classes, I always write carbon dioxide plus water gives rise to what? Carbon dioxide plus water gives rise to glucose. Now, what is the significance? It's just not an equation. It tells you that water is used to fix CO2. It says that yes, water is used to do what? Water is used to fix carbon dioxide. Now, when water is used to fix carbon dioxide, then there could be some plants which have very less water in it, or their surroundings are very dry. So when I talk about some plants which are there in dry tropical areas, when I'm talking about plants which are there in dry tropical areas that have scarcity of water, how can I make the use of water better? How can I make the use of water better? For example, everyone, I am talking about a C3 plant. I am talking about a C3 plant. Suppose I'm talking about a C3 plant. X amount of water is used to fix Y amount of carbon dioxide. X amount of water is used to fix Y amount of carbon dioxide. Then C4 plant is much better. How? Because it's the plant which is there in dry tropical areas, which has scarcity of water. So it has adapted itself such that only X by 2 amount of water is required to fix Y amount of carbon dioxide. Or I can say X amount of water will fix double the amount of CO2. So in C4 plant, water use has become better because of a specific anatomy of the leaf which we call as Kranz anatomy. So understand it in your brain like a story. There's a single universal pathway, C3 pathway. C3 pathway, there was a need of another pathway because there were plants living in dry tropical areas, and we have examples of plants in our NCERT that are following this. Their names are maize, the examples of C4 plants. Maize, sorghum, sugarcane. What are they, everyone? Maize, sorghum, sugarcane. Some of these are dry tropical plants. They have water use in a very better way. For half amount of water, double the amount of carbon dioxide will be fixed. That is the C4 plant. Why? Because they have a special anatomy which is known as Kranz anatomy. What happens in Kranz anatomy? What do we mean by Kranz? Kranz means the presence of a wreath-like structure. Wreath is like a mala, a garland basically. So there is a garland of cells around the vascular bundles. Everyone, suppose there is a vascular bundle. Let me draw it here. What will happen in Kranz anatomy? Suppose there is a vascular bundle. So around the vascular bundle, what will happen? Around the vascular bundle, there will be cells packed around it in multiple layers like this. Now this garland-like structure around the vascular bundle, this is known as bundle sheath cells. These cells which are around the vascular bundle, these are known as bundle sheath cells. They do not have any spaces between them. They are impervious to oxygen. They make the water use very, very, very much better. So these are bundle sheath cells. Normally each and every leaf has got what type of cell? Mesophyll cells to do photosynthesis, but they are different in having another type of cells also, which are known as bundle sheath cells, which are surrounding the vascular bundle in the form of concentric rings. Again, another thing, This pathway was given by a scientist, a combination of scientists, Hatch and Slack. So this pathway has been named as Hatch and Slack pathway. It's a cyclic process given by Hatch and Slack. Now I think you have understood the basics of the C3 and the C4 pathway. Even if it is a C4 plant, it is going to show C3 cycle. Why? Because it is a universal cycle. I'll show you a C4 plant which is showing the C3 cycle also in one of the cells, mesophyll and bundle sheath. In one of it, I'll tell you how. Now, why the name C4 cycle? Because the first stable product which is formed has 4 carbons in it. Right? I will write the logic of C4. Here, the first stable product has got what? It has 4 carbons. The first stable product is OAA. The full form is oxaloacetic acid. It is what, everyone? It is oxaloacetic acid. Okay, so this is C4 plant, C4 plant, everyone. Now, everyone, when we are talking about C4 plant, there's a complete cycle which is given in your NCERT. And yes, I'll be drawing that cycle for you. I'll be showing you each and every pointer with respect to it. So let us go on with it now. But so now here, no, you have to understand two things. My very first thing is, why is C4 cycle better? Number one, it has Kranz anatomy. Number two, it has find ways to stop Rubisco from coming in contact with oxygen because of the Kranz anatomy. Do you realize that when there is Kranz anatomy, number one, the cells of these bundle sheath cells, these cells which are around, what are these cells known as, all of you? These cells are known as nothing but bundle sheath cells. The name of these cells are bundle sheath cells. But so these bundle sheath cells, they have a lot of number of chloroplasts. The number of chloroplasts are more, they are very tightly packed. They're not going to allow oxygen to enter there. So in one way, they're protecting the Rubisco from oxygen. They want the Rubisco to only show carboxylase activity, not the oxygenase activity, because it's a very waste process. Why it is a waste process, I'll tell you. Right? Why it's a waste process, I'll tell you. Now, everyone, when I talk about C4 plants, I'll show you the complete cycle, that how it is working. But let us figure out some things by our own before we see the final diagram. In this plant, the cycle occurs in two types of cell. The first cell in which the cycle runs, its name is mesophyll cell. The first cell in which the cycle runs, it is a mesophyll cell. The second cell in which C4 cycle runs, it is bundle sheath cells. Now, these two cells, when I talk about them, they are interconnected to each other by plasmodesmatal connections. What is happening here is CO2 is coming in the mesophyll cells. First of all, understand the process. CO2 is being accepted by a substance, by a compound which we call as phosphoenol pyruvate. PEP is what? Phosphoenol pyruvate. Now, phosphoenol pyruvate has got 3 carbons in it. It has got 3 carbons in it plus 1 carbon dioxide which is getting here. I am going to get a compound which is oxaloacetic acid, the first stable product which has got 4 carbons, which is formed in what cell? Mesophyll cell. Now, OAA is a very reactive compound. I want to send OAA or this organic acid here, but it is very reactive. So what do I do to avoid it? I convert OAA to another acid, a similar acid. I am calling it as malic acid, which has 4 carbons in it. I converted it. Why? Because malic acid is a little more stable, less reactive. Now it is my malic acid which is moving into the bundle sheath cells. What did I do? CO2 is fixed here. This is my 1 degree fixation. OAA is formed here. The enzyme used in this case, here, the name of the enzyme is pepcase. The name of the enzyme is pepcase. Why? Because the full form of PEP is phosphoenol pyruvate. What is the full form of it, beta? Phosphoenol pyruvate. PEP plus CO2 in the presence of pepcase, OA, 4-carbon compound, converted into a similar organic acid, malic acid. Now it is my malic acid which is moving to the bundle sheath cell. My malic acid is here, which is how many carbons in number? 4 carbons. It is here that malic acid will convert itself into a compound which I call as pyruvic acid or pyruvate, which has 3 carbons in it. It is getting converted to pyruvic acid or pyruvate. Now when all of you, 4 carbon converted to 3 carbon, it is somewhere here that it will be releasing a carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide will go into what cycle? This carbon dioxide will go and do C3 cycle. In C3 cycle, what is the enzyme which is involved? Rubisco is involved here. Rubisco enzyme is involved in the C3 cycle. C3 cycle is occurring in C4 plants also. In which cell? In bundle sheath cell. Is oxygen allowed to come inside the bundle sheath cell? No. So we have avoided the contact of Rubisco and oxygen. But this CO2 fixation, two CO2 fixation are occurring here. Pyruvic acid coming back to the mesophyll cell. Pyruvic acid coming back to the mesophyll cell. Let me make it here that okay, my pyruvic acid has come here. Now I want the cycle to go on. So I would have to do what? I have to regenerate PEP. To regenerate this PEP, I have to use what? I will be using one ATP molecule. I will be using what, everyone? I will be using ATP molecule here. I'll be using what, everyone? I'll be using ATP molecule here, not one. But 2 ATP molecules are used here to convert pyruvic acid into PEP. Okay, so this will complete my whole cycle in a flow chart kind of thing, basically. Okay, everyone, so I think this line will very well demarcate that what is happening here. This fixation that we saw here, this is the one which is involved in 1 degree fixation. Pepcase is doing 1 degree fixation. Rubisco is doing secondary fixation here. 2 times CO2 is fixed here. So my cycle is here, very much perfect. Now if somebody asks you that in mesophyll cell, why doesn't Calvin cycle occur? Because in mesophyll cell, pepcase is present, Rubisco is not present. In bundle sheath cell, pepcase is not present, Rubisco is present. So primary fixation, this acid converting into malic acid going here. Pyruvic acid regenerated, that is our C4 cycle. We understood that Kranz anatomy is helping in making the water use better. The oxygenase activity of Rubisco is avoided, and we have spatially separated the 2 fixation here, giving C4 plants double photosynthetic efficiency with respect to the C3 plant, right? But this is the cycle which is given in your NCERT. First mesophyll cell, then bundle sheath cell, CO2, atmospheric CO2 in the form of bicarbonate, adding up with phosphoenol pyruvate, forming any C4 acid, that C4 acid being transported here, undergoing decarboxylation, CO2 released, Calvin cycle, secondary fixation happening, pyruvic acid or any other C3 acid transported here, regenerated to make it again. Plasmodesmatal connection is connecting the mesophyll and the bundle sheath cell. This is the Hatch and Slack pathway given in your NCERT. And I have told you a little more technical thing that makes more sense and everything very, very much easy. Now see this here, I am talking about photorespiration and C4 pathway. In C4 plants, photorespiration does not occur. Why? This is because they have a mechanism that increases the concentration of CO2 at the enzyme site. Malic acid is itself releasing CO2 around the Rubisco. So we are increasing the CO2 around Rubisco. This takes place when C4 acid from the mesophyll cell is broken down into the bundle sheath cell to release CO2. which releases the intracellular concentration of CO2. Bachcho, when this malic acid is releasing CO2 around Rubisco, we're increasing carbon dioxide. This cell being the bundle sheath cell, oxygen is not allowed to enter. So yes, we are preventing what? Rubisco attaching to oxygen. Rubisco attaching to oxygen is photorespiration. So photorespiration does not occur here. In turn, this ensures that Rubisco functions as carboxylase, minimizing the oxygenase activity. Done with C3 cycle, done with C4 cycle in hardly 30 minutes, everyone. Moving to the next topic, photorespiration, which all of you already know 50%. Now everyone, it is this photorespiration which we also call as, bachcho, this is also known as C2 cycle. This photorespiration is also known as C2 cycle, or it is also known as phosphoglycolate cycle, also known as carbon oxidation. Bachcho, oxidation cycle, because Rubisco's oxidation occurs here instead of carboxylation. So these are multiple names that you might hear given to photorespiration. Now showing you this with the help of a comic. Bachcho, this is what? This is my Rubisco sitting here. The plant is asking it a question that you have two choices now, Rubisco. Either you have to connect to oxygen or CO2. But in case of phosphorespiration, my Rubisco is very, very much confused that, oh my God, what should I do? And finally, it takes a wrong decision. I'll tell you why a wrong decision. He took a decision to do what? He chose oxygen, and the plant is like, no, you should not attach to oxygen because that's a complete wasteful process. Now, what is wasteful in bio? I'll tell you what is wasteful and why is it known as C2 cycle. Why? Because as C3 and C4 cycle, the first stable product which is formed here has got 2 carbons only. Here RUBP, instead of being converted to 2 molecules of PGA, 2 molecules of PGA are not formed like Calvin cycle, rather it binds with oxygen to form a molecule of phosphoglycerate and phosphoglycolate. Bachcho, it is this phosphoglycolate or this 2 carbon compound that we call as phosphoglycolate cycle, or we call it as C2 cycle. And this complete process where it forms this 2 carbon compound phosphoglycolate, this cycle is known as phosphorespiration or the C2 cycle. Extremely wasteful process. Let me tell you why. Now I understood that these red triangles are carbon dioxide and the blue ones are oxygen. Now, when carbon dioxide concentration is high, if CO2 is high in the environment, it would bind with CO2. But when the CO2 concentration is low, oxygen concentration is high, Rubisco will bind with oxygen. Show photorespiration forming phosphoglycolate, the 2 carbon compound. Now understand that in this cycle, there are 3 organelles which are involved very closely. CPM, chloroplast, peroxisome and mitochondria are interacting. Other than this, we don't have to do the complete cycle. We have to understand the gist of it, which you mostly have done. But now I'm just putting here that why is it a waste? Because we have just ridiculed it so much. So let us come forward to why do we call it as a waste. Now in photorespiratory pathway, there is no synthesis of sugar. I was doing C3 cycle, C4 cycle, that at least sugar would be formed, starch would be formed, something would be formed. But there is, everyone, neither, no synthesis of sugar nor of ATP. No energy is synthesized, no sugar is synthesized. Rather, but CO2 is released. Rather, ATP is used in the process. Rather, it results in the release of CO2 with the use of ATP. no synthesis of ATP, no synthesis of NADPH occur. Therefore, it is a completely wasteful process. Photorespiration is the one process which is decreasing, which is reducing the efficiency of a C3 plant. The site of photorespiration includes these three organelles which are required to complete the process. That is it. Why wasteful? No ATP formed, no NADPH formed, no sugar formed, CO2 released, energy used. Complete waste. Photorespiration occurs in C3 plant. Photorespiration doesn't occur in C4 plant, making C4 plant better. Making C4 plant better. So I have merged everything. C2, C3 and C4 now. The story should be clear to you. Moving to a little separate topic, which is CAM pathway, before I move to factors affecting photosynthesis. Now, what is this CAM pathway? When I talk about CAM, the full form of CAM is crassulacean acid metabolism. The full form of CAM is crassulacean acid metabolism. It means that in this pathway, some acidic compounds, some organic acids are going to be formed. Now, CAM plants are the ones which live in desert areas where there is very less water, there's scarcity of water. So you're going to see that the CAM plants are like Opuntia, Bryophyllum, or Kalanchoe, Agave. All of these are examples of CAM plants. So they have to reduce the loss of water. But at the same time, they also have to do photosynthesis. Now, the loss of water occurs through a pore, which is stomata. The exchange of gases during photosynthesis also occurs through stomata. So the plant thought that if I am closing the stomata, then it would affect photosynthesis also. Because suppose I have closed the stomata, then transpiration or the loss of water will not occur. Okay. The loss of water during the day would be prevented. Suppose I am closing the stomata in the daytime, because in the daytime the sun is there. Okay, but now the plant is worried that it needs gases for photosynthesis. It needs carbon dioxide to be fixed for photosynthesis. How will it fix carbon dioxide when it is keeping the stomata closed during the daytime to prevent the water loss? So the plant got an idea that yes, transpiration will occur only in the daytime. So I can keep the stomata closed. But how about opening the stomata at the night? If the stomata is opening at the night, then transpiration will not occur. Yes, problem sorted. And me, the plant, can fix carbon dioxide in the night, keep it in the form of a reserve or in the refrigerator for a while, and then get it out in the day and do photosynthesis. Get it out in the day and do photosynthesis. So that is what this plant did. It kept its stomata closed during the daytime, opened it during the night. In the night, fixed the carbon dioxide in the form of an acid, kept that acid intact, broke that acid in the day, got carbon dioxide out of it, and did photosynthesis. Super smart. Super smart. That is precisely what you want to know about CAM plants. Let me show you the text a little bit and we're done with the topic also. CAM pathway was first observed in plants which was belonging to Crassulaceae family. First observed in plants belonging to Crassulaceae family. That's why this pathway is known as crassulacean acid metabolism. CAM plants are succulent xerophytes. Xerophytes which live in very dry conditions. Example, Opuntia, Bryophyllum, pineapple, Kalanchoe, sedum, agave, aloe, crassula, euphorbia, etc., etc., etc. बच्चों. Okay, that's enough. Mesophyll cells of the plants contain enzymes for C3 and C4 cycle, but Kranz anatomy is absent here. In case they ask, they do not show Kranz anatomy, but have the enzymes for both C3 cycle and C4 cycle. In these plants, C3 cycle occurs in the day while C4 occur in the night. Okay, how does it function? Let me tell you. Now, this will help you with everything that I've told you. Night time, daytime. There are no separate cells I've talked about. Here I have distinguished the two cycles based upon the hour, day and night. So I'm starting with the night time. What happens in the night time? Carbon dioxide is fixed. What is formed here? Carbon dioxide is fixed. PEP has taken the carbon dioxide. Using pepcase, oxaloacetic acid is formed. Malate is formed. Now it is stored in the storehouse, which is vacuole. Now it is stored in the storehouse, which is vacuole. Yes. Now in the daytime, from the vacuole, this malate releases the carbon dioxide by decarboxylation, which is taken up by RUBP in the presence of Rubisco, is doing a Calvin cycle, forming sugar. So this Calvin cycle is occurring during the daytime. I know dark reaction will stop if light is not there. So this Calvin cycle here is occurring in the daytime. Rubisco is used here, but this CO2, I didn't take this CO2 from the atmosphere from my stomata, because in the daytime the stomata are closed. It is released from this malate compound, which was made up during the night. So it is this C4 cycle which occurred during the night time. It is this C3 cycle which occurred during the daytime. Bingo, and we're done. The simplest way. If you will complicate things, they will get more complicated. We did C3 cycle, did C4 cycle, C2 cycle, CAM pathway, 4 pathways, and at least 30-35 minutes. We are done with it. Moving to the last topic of the whole chapter, factors affecting photosynthesis, which would wind it up. Now, when I talk about factors affecting photosynthesis, I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a little bit of story, because this factors affecting photosynthesis is based upon a law which we call as Blackman's law of limiting factor. Now, all of us superficially understand it with the definition, but what does it actually mean? Suppose in my house, I am making some tea. To make tea, there are various ingredients which are put into place. For example, it would require tea leaves, sugar, some cardamom, milk, water. Now at different points of day, I have different things which are in shortage. Suppose one day I have only 2 sips of milk. The other day I was making tea, I don't have sugar. The third day I have very less amount of tea leaves. Or the next day I was out of water. So every time the quality of my tea which is formed will be dependent on what? It will be dependent on the ingredient which was least, which was there in shortage. And then I would say the tea would have come out great if this was in proper concentration. The tea would come out great if I would have more tea leaves. So in the same way, Blackman's law of limiting factor, given in 1905 by Blackman, it states that when there are multiple factors which are affecting a single pathway, a single process, then who is going to decide the rate of the reaction? The one ingredient, the one factor which is present in the limiting concentration, which is less in concentration, is going to decide the rate of my reaction. So in this topic, we're going to discuss a lot of factors we've dealt so far. One of a very important one. Everyone, I'll read it out for you. If a chemical process is affected by more than one factors, then its rate will be affected by the factor which is nearest to its minimum value. It is the factor which directly affects the process if its quantity was changed. This is factors affecting photosynthesis. There are multiple factors, all of you. Now, first of all, we're talking about internal factor, that if I was a plant, that then what internal factors could have affected the rate of photosynthesis? It could be number, size, age, orientation of leaf. Orientation, how is it held with respect to the sun? It could be mesophyll cells and the number of chloroplast. Could be internal CO2 concentration, inside, internal factors. Or the amount of chlorophyll, Talking about some external factors, the environmental factors, Could be availability of sunlight, how much sunlight is available, what is the temperature outside, what is the carbon dioxide concentration outside, and the water that I am giving to the plant. The water that I am giving to the plant. So these are a list of external and internal factors which affect the process of photosynthesis, and we're moving to the first factor, which is light. So we'll be dealing with, I think, light, carbon dioxide, temperature, water. I think these are the only 4 factors we would be dealing with, if I'm not wrong. And once we're done with these 4 factors, the chapter is over. Moving to the first very important factor, it is light. Everyone, first of all, we're writing about the quality of light. I already know that out of the whole spectrum of sun ray, the whole spectrum, there's just a specific range of sunlight which we use for photosynthesis. We've already discussed it in the class that it is known as PAR, or photosynthetically active radiation, whose range was from 400 nanometer to 700 nanometer. That is one thing. The next thing, that out of this 400 to 700 nanometer, I know that best photosynthesis occurs in red and blue light, and it is worst in the green light. So once we are doing factors, in a way, we are revising the chapter of whatever we've done so far. Light quality, part of spectrum used in photosynthesis, which has a wavelength of around 400 to 700 nanometer. Blue and red region, most effective for photosynthesis. Green is the least effective. Talking about light duration. Everyone, it has been experimentally seen that while doing photosynthesis, suppose in case A, I am giving the plant continuous light, looking at the rate of photosynthesis. And in the case B, I am giving a light period, dark period, light period, dark period, light period, dark period. If the light is given in the form of patches, like a sprint, it shows more rate of photosynthesis. So, continuous photosynthesis occurs in continuous illumination without any harm to the plant, but light coming in packets, discontinuous light is any day better. It is any day better. Moving to the next point, I'm talking about light intensity. Everyone, light intensity is being explained by this diagram. Let me explain this to you, then I'll read this for you. Bacho, suppose I am increasing the light intensity initially, then the rate of photosynthesis is increasing. Can you see this point? They've written it A here. I am increasing the light intensity. See, I've been increasing the light intensity, and I can see that the rate of photosynthesis is also increasing. Yes or no? I can see that all this throughout A, almost till this point, as I'm increasing the light intensity, the rate of photosynthesis is increasing. In B, gradually as it reaches here, it becomes constant. What becomes constant? The rate of photosynthesis becomes constant. And if I am increasing the light intensity further also, rate of photosynthesis is not increasing. Why? Because till this point, light was the limiting factor. But after this point, some other factor became limiting. And hence what happened? All of you? Hence, it shows a straight line. It doesn't change, because here at this point C, some other factor becomes limiting. So you should remember the graph. It's a very, very important one. Let me read it for you. At higher light intensities, gradually rate does not show further increase as other factors become limiting. Everyone, light is hardly a limiting factor, because of the sunlight, the plant is absorbing only 10% of it. That only 10% of the sunlight can be used basically. Light saturation occurs at 10% of the full sunlight, except For the plants which are completely living under shade, photosynthesis, in the process of photosynthesis, light is every time in abundance. It's hardly the case, that too in case of shady plants, that light is a limiting factor. Okay? Light is rarely a limiting factor in nature, while if you will increase the light too much, it will have detrimental or negative impact such that it would break down the chlorophyll and will decrease the process of photosynthesis. So light is one of the most major pointer with multiple aspects that we have done here, all of you. Okay, so remember the further pointers in light. Second most important factor here is carbon dioxide. What is the second most important factor here? The second most important factor, all of you, is carbon dioxide. Now, the C3 and C4 plants, they will respond differently. When I'm talking about, they will respond differently to CO2 concentrations. At low light conditions, neither group will respond to high CO2. What does this mean? Now, why is light affecting it so much? Why is light affecting it so much that if there is less light intensity or low light intensity, then the C3 or the C4 plant, it won't respond even if you're increasing the CO2 concentration. Why? Because everyone, an optimum amount of light is a prerequisite. If that optimum quantity of light is not present, then you increasing any other factor will not show any response, will not show any repercussion there. Right? I hope I made sense. That at low light intensity, even if you increase the concentration of CO2, no effect. But at high light intensity, both C3 and C4 plants shows increased rates of photosynthesis. Increased rate of photosynthesis. Now coming to the next thing. We know that between C3 and C4 plants, which are better? Ma'am, C4 plants are better. You told that the efficiency of C4 plants is double the efficiency of C3 plant. Absolutely right. Now, if I talk about the saturation point, what is saturation point? That at what concentration of carbon dioxide they'll reach their maximum rate what they can. Right? So when will they get saturated? So if you consider a C3 plant and a C4 plant, who will get saturated earlier? I'm repeating, if I'm talking about a C3 plant and a C4 plant, who will get saturated earlier? The one which is better. Which is better? C4 is better. So C4 has a lower saturation point. C3 plant has a higher saturation point. So it means that who needs more carbon dioxide? C3 plant needs more carbon dioxide. If they ask you a question that the quantity or the concentration of carbon dioxide is a limiting factor in C3 or C4, C3. C3 is the less efficient one. Its saturation point is higher. So it is the one to which CO2 deficiency will be a major limiting factor. Let me read it to you that what are their saturation concentrations that you would have to remember. Okay. So everyone, C4 plants show saturation at about 360 microliter per liter. So when I say C4, everyone, C4 gets saturated at 360 microliter per liter of carbon dioxide, and C3 gets saturated at higher concentration, which is 450 microliter per liter of CO2, while C3 respond to increased CO2 concentration, saturation is seen only beyond 450. Saturation comes beyond 360 in C4. It comes beyond 450 in C3. Thus, current availability of CO2 is limiting to C3 plant, not to C4 plant. I hope I'm making sense. Very important. You don't just have to cram it, you don't have to ratify it, but you have to understand them as plants. C3 plants, C4 plants, the one in dry tropical areas, how do they become more efficient? By avoiding photorespiration. Then what is photorespiration? What is C2 cycle? How do they avoid photorespiration? So you cannot do justice to these different cycles without blending them. We're not blending them so that we're making it harder. We're blending them to understand the whole story. Because ultimately, C3, C4, C2, all these three cycles are related to each other. And a little different segment is CAM pathway. So it's really important to understand all of them in a go so that it brings clarity to your mind, right? So that it brings clarity to your mind. Now, after carbon dioxide, we are moving a little bit more to this pointer only. So we are saying that the fact that C3 plants respond to higher CO2 by showing more photosynthesis, it would definitely increase the productivity. Now, I know that it is the C3 plant which is usually wanting more CO2. So, okay, I want to increase the economy, I want to have more monetary value out of it. So I'm growing C3 plants, giving them more artificial carbon dioxide so that their productivity increases. Now, who am I going to charge? I am going to charge the public. Yes, I will grow some specific crops commercially with higher CO2 so that it would give me better yield and higher productivity. This is what I am doing in greenhouse. In greenhouses. So in greenhouses specifically, cherry tomato and bell peppers are grown. You must have gone to the market with your mother and you have seen that the normal tomatoes are not that costly. But those cherry tomatoes or these bell peppers are 3 to 4 times more expensive than what? Than the normal green colored capsicum which is there. Why? Because they're specifically grown in greenhouses, making sure that they're organically grown, that they show more productivity, etc., etc., etc. Right? That is why it is costly. So the examiner can ask you that what crops are usually grown in greenhouses, increasing the CO2 concentration. So your answer has to be tomatoes and bell peppers. One more thing which is not mentioned here, which is usually asked, that the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere is 0.02 to 0.03%. Now, if you will increase the CO2 concentration to 0.04% approximately, it would increase the rate of photosynthesis, right? Or around this. But if you will increase it even further, it will become detrimental for the plant. It will become what, everyone? It will become detrimental for the plant. Am I clear, all of you? Yes or no? Let me come to this again to you. Yes, everyone. So I was saying that this specific concentration I was talking about, there's a little change in it. There's a very slight change because it's not wrong, but when we are sticking to NCERT, we're sticking to NCERT. So the atmospheric concentration is around 0.03 to 0.4%. This is the current concentration of CO2, right? So I'm saying that if I increase this value to up to this, it is beneficial. It is beneficial. But if I exceed it beyond 0.05, then it is going to become detrimental, negative for the plant over long periods. This is the atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration in percentage. If you increase it up till this much, yes, it's going to help the plant. But further above it, it would have a negative impact, all of you. Okay? But you see this? That's a graph. The shape of the graph with respect to the carbon dioxide concentration is going to be like this. You can see that C4 plants are the ones which are showing more rate of photosynthesis. C3 is here. C3 is here, C4 is above, better photosynthesis at low carbon dioxide concentration itself. Okay. The next factor that we're going to cover is temperature and water. We're done with light and CO2, which are the most important of the factors. Now moving to temperature. But your temperature is a very choosy factor. Very choosy factor in the sense that there is just a single temperature at which the rate of the reaction will be best. And even before or after that temperature, it is going to decrease. When there's only one perfect thing, the graph gets this shape that yes, this is the place at which the optimum conditions are there, at which the best rate of reaction would be achieved. If you go below it, or even if you go beyond it, it's going to decrease the rate of reaction. The temperature optimum for photosynthesis, it is different for plants depending upon the habitat that they're living in. Suppose there's a C4 plant which has always been exposed to a condition of high sun rays, so it naturally would want more temperature because it is adapted like that. Though if I'm talking about a plant which is growing in shade or where there is less temperature around, so it is suited to it, right? It is acclimatized to low temperature. Even if you will give it more temperature, it would become negative for it. It's not going to bring any good to it. So everyone, I'm saying that tropical plants which are there in tropics where the sun is directly falling, they'll have a higher temperature optimum than the plants which are there in temperate climates. Temperate are colder climates. Other than this, there's just one perfect temperature where the best photosynthesis occurs. Before and after that value, the rate of photosynthesis is going to decrease. Everyone, next one thing that I wanted to tell you, if I talk about light reaction, where we were making ATP and NADPH, and if I am talking about dark reaction, so everyone, it is dark reaction which is more affected by temperature. Why? Because in the biosynthetic pathway, in the dark reaction, there is more use of enzymes. So it is the dark reaction which are more affected by temperature with respect to the light reactions. Moving ahead, everyone, the last factor is water. They say that it is that factor which kind of indirectly affects photosynthesis. But the water that I am giving to the plant in the root, very less quantity, or less than 2% of that water is being used for photosynthesis. Rest water is going where? It is giving the plant its turgidity. It's giving the plant that strength that it is standing all the way waving. It is giving the strength, it is giving the plant that strength that it is not showing wilting. When it will wilt, the stomata will automatically close. So in a sense, it is providing it a channel that is giving the structure to the plant. Okay. So when I read it through, even though water is one of the reactants in the light reaction, the effect of water as a factor more through its effects on the plant rather than directly on photosynthesis. The saying that water has an effect on the plant overall rather than specifically on the process of photosynthesis. Water stress, if there is water stress, it would cause the stomata to close. If the stomata is closing, then the amount of CO2 uptaken is affected. That's why it is a kind of indirect effect. Water as a factor shows indirect effect. It shows what? Indirect effect when it comes to it. Okay. Everyone, with this, that's a thank you from my end to all of you for being here, for understanding each and everything so well, for understanding each and everything so well, all of you. So everyone, here I am helping you with the promise I made that in the end of the session, we are going to nail it with the previous year questions which have appeared this year in our exam. So let's see that after doing the 2 sessions, are we going to accomplish it? Did we do it nicely? Question number 1. Which of the following statement about Rubisco is true? Rubisco, you understand Rubisco? It is an example involved in the photolysis of water. It catalyzes carboxylation of RuBP. It is active only in the dark. It has higher affinity for oxygen than carbon dioxide. बच्चों, comment the answer to question number 1 in the chat box. Comment the answer to question number 1 in the chat box. And in the next session, I am going to mark you here. I'm going to see that who has given the answers to this question, right? So I would be making your presence here in the session. Subscribe to the channel and also mark the answer to question number 1 in the chat box. I'll wait for it. Telling you the answer, I hope you have put the answer in the chat box. Bacho, my answer is definitely B. Now, it is coming out as very easy. Yes, NEET will ask you easier questions. You just have to keep your concepts clear and nice. It is an enzyme involved in photolysis of water. No, Rubisco was not involved in photolysis of water. It definitely catalyzes the carboxylation of RuBP. It is active only in the dark. No. It has higher affinity for oxygen than CO2. If the concentration of carbon dioxide and oxygen is same, it is more biased to carbon dioxide. My answer to this question is B. Yes, NEET 2025. Such an easy question for us. Next is match the following. While we were doing it, I already told you that these pigments giving very specific colors is something examiner loves. And see, it was here in 2025. Put the answer to question number 2. Put the answer of question number 2 in the chat box. There is chlorophyll A, B, xanthophyll carotenoids, and the list here. And the list here. Everyone, what is the color? Chlorophyll A will give you a blue-green color. A is matched to 3. Chlorophyll B will give a greenish tinge. It will give a yellow-green color. Matching it with 1 here. But when I say xanthophylls, xanthophylls will show you a yellow color, which is number 2. And it is these carotenoids which will give yellow to yellow orange color. But very specific colors given by the pigment. Remember, chlorophyll A has blue-green color, B has yellow-green color, xanthophylls are yellow, and carotenoids have a little tinge of orange in them. Very good question. Already predicted this one. Last, all of you, the options are here. Very good question. Very good question. Which of the following are required for the dark reaction of photosynthesis? Biosynthetic reaction, dark reaction on which our second class is based? Light, chlorophyll, CO2, ATP, NADPH. The options given are D, E only, A, B, C only, C, D, E only, B, C, D only. NEET 2025 it is. Question number 3, very good. Did we talk about light today? No. Did we talk about chlorophyll? No. Because light and chlorophyll was used to trap the sunlight. And we've trapped the sunlight, made the ATP and NADPH, and fixed carbon dioxide. This is all what we have dealt with in the dark phase of the reaction, giving the answer as C, D, and E. Giving the answer as C, D, and E. So I hope, my students, that you have realized that this chapter is just one of the most important things with which a lot of tricky questions can be made. With this, everyone, we come to an end, and I have something for you here, a little motivation. Great things never come from comfort zone. If you keep on procrastinating things that yes, we'll do it later. I know this is something which I don't like. Pushing it towards the end of the day, it would be there as a burden to you throughout the day. So, once you are coming out of that comfort zone, it means you're doing something. It is discomfort which is going to bring you better results. If you already know a subject and you are putting 5 hours in it a day, your scores won't improve. But if you are putting those 5 hours in something which you hate, and then you will see the improvement. So if you are in discomfort, it means that you are on the right track. Don't be blind to yourself. It's the time that you should realize it. Why? Because it's the time we can still mend the things. It's not April, it's still November. Yes, we can mend the things. So don't be blind, come out of your comfort zones. It's discomfort, it's eating the frog that would help you do it. With this, everyone, this is your Surajmukhi signing off for today, and then seeing you in the next session. Don't forget to mention the answers to these questions in the chat box, at least one of it, so that I know you're here and I'm going to bring you here the next time. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. See you super soon. Bye bye. Take care.